Whenever the Dharma Productions logo appears on the big screen, I can't help but be moved, for it represents a part of my childhood. Some of my favorite memories in theaters is associated with the iconic K3G song playing in the background as the Dharma Productions logo appears. And in the last few years, it's as if the event-like nature of the movies associated with the company have somewhat dissipated, where the movies of their slate just seem to not generate as much interest as they did previously. The last movie probably being Rocky or Rani 3 years ago, they generally had a feeling of palpable interest around me. Mera Dil, directed by Vivek Soni, is the first theatrical release produced by Dharma Productions in 2026. The director's movies have gone straight to streaming previously, having directed Meenakshi Sundareshwar and Aap Jaisa Koi, both movies that went straight to Netflix. Mera Dil stars Lakshya as Arav and Ananya Panday as Chandni. The makers of the movie have done an absolutely insane job in keeping the story at bay. I say this because I've stepped out of the film and I literally did not predict this to be the storyline of the film. It's in sharp contrast to what the makers of Ek Din did with its marketing, which was literally to tell you everything about the film until the changed climax. Here the film has been totally kept under wraps. They have definitely employed the Sayyara marketing model where the music and the trailer is going to be the only selling point to push ticket sales. I will just be telling you what the trailer presented. It showcases a love that blossoms between the two lead characters in college and how a significant event in their lives changes the course of what they do in the future forever. What is this contentious point in their lives that creates a scar in their relationship which is so tough to forget or move on from is what Mera Dil explores. This is where we not only shed light on impulsive decisions made as young adults, but how familial dynamics shape you as individuals and how one is in the constant pursuit to change patterns in their own life versus repeating the same mistakes they grew up observing.
अरे कहना क्या चाहते हो?
I know I have kept it vague, but it's essential for you to explore it yourselves if you end up watching the movie in theaters. Here's me telling you the good and bad aspects of the film so that you guys can ultimately decide whether to watch Mera Dil in theaters or not. The good. Relevant and creative execution. At least for the initial portions of the film, you genuinely commend the makers to explore a different and unique element of romantic dynamics in the modern day versus falling prey to trends of what is popular in films currently. See, we all know that the toxic pagloos are all the rage in the country right now. A lot of these movies have ended up appearing in the Matlab Kuch Bhi episodes in recent months, especially the likes of Tere Ishq Mein and Ek Deewani Ki Deewaniyat. And I know many people were trying to create parallels with this movie, possibly exploring similar themes because of that one scene. Trust me, this movie has its own fair share of problems that I will explore a little later, but I'm just here to communicate to you that it isn't jumping on the same bandwagon. The relevant themes that the movie explores is something that for the most part is dealt with responsibility and tact, and I believe it is a breath of fresh air in an atmosphere where problematic acts are normalized, and there is no repenting for those same acts. Vivek Soni is a director who I believe executes some really creative choices, something he has done with his previous movies where the scenes in the film often become like stage set musicals, like one of my favorite movies, Janeman. You see fleeting moments of such brilliance when Lakshya and his boys in the hostel are cleaning the dorms to make sure it is spotless when Ananya arrives, and when the couple pretends to have a yummy meal over wine together. These sequences are staged, choreographed and designed like one-act plays on stage, and it produces some really brilliant moments. I must say though, while the theme of creative choreography assigned to daily activities in life was more consistent in a film like Aap Jaisa Koi, it's rare here and something that seems like a part of a different movie altogether. So there are often points where the creative mind of Vivek Soni is in conflict with the sensibilities of commercial Hindi cinema. Some great ideas, some relevant and progressive themes, but in the process falling in the middle of neither being artistically zany or unique nor committing to the generic tropes of Bollywood romance, the cliches. I'll shed light on this in the conclusion of the review. Decent music and performances. I wouldn't go out of my way to rave about the music of this film as if it was some of the most soulful stuff I have heard, but Sachin Jigar have done a fairly decent job with the soulful tracks of this movie. The most well thought out number, at least visually and from how it perfectly fit in the film, is Khasiyat, which establishes the romantic dynamic as Lakshya tries to match the color of her outfits. It's painfully contrived, but it progresses the storyline. With the absence of Arijit Singh in Bollywood movies, I believe post Sayyara, Fahim Abdullah has taken the mantle to denote the angst in Bollywood love stories. His singles Mera Dil and Etbar are soulful and heart-aching, but in isolation as the singles deserved a better film. I must say the problem did not lie in the performances of this movie. It lies in the half-baked writing, especially in the second half, that almost undoes some of the interesting choices the movie wants to make initially, specifically on boundaries and respect in relationships. Ananya Panday in emotional scenes excels. Lakshya's Hindi diction is exemplary, and both of them, especially really shine in this confrontation scene prior to the interval. That is probably the only sequence where the director captures both the actors in the same frame, with long shots of it genuinely feeling like you are a bystander in an argument between a romantic couple, much like the scene from Jug Jug Jio, where Varun and Kiara are fighting between each other, possibly the only nuanced element of that film. There are moments where some of Ananya's isms do appear, where I can see Ananya and her Dhirubhai Ambani school twang does slip in, but emotionally both actors do a fairly decent job portraying a young and naive couple stumbling through life. I think they are hard done by surface level writing more than their ability to convey their emotions. The dynamic barely has any banter, any comedic relief, anything to understand why the both of them connect as humans. The relationship just starts after a song, and it all falls on the writing. The rest of the cast barely have any screen time to have a solid impression with the audience. The underwhelming aspects: odd aesthetic and writing choices. So the consistent collaborator with Vivek Soni is cinematographer Debujit Ray, and the man is aesthetically exceptional. There is no doubt about it. The proof is in the pudding of how beautiful both Meenakshi Sundareshwar and especially Aap Jaisa Koi looked. But I do feel there is almost a creative and aesthetic overdrive in this movie, almost as if the makers were not very confident about the material of the movie, so they compensate through so much visual grammar that it often even gets in the way of the scenes. The film is set in Hyderabad, and I honestly have to tell you that other than Sri Venkateshwara Swami Temple and the Buddha statue in Hussain Sagar, the film never seems like a college story set in Hyderabad. Whenever the characters decide to watch the sunset, the scene is captured with an obvious green screen backdrop. The apartment in which Lakshya and Ananya Panday reside has this odd color palette of red, yellow and green that pop, almost as if Red Chillies has mandated everyone to follow the combination after Jawan. There is an omnipresent nature of the sun to denote a warm texture to the film, but it often gets in the way of the scenes, blinding you in between dialogues. There are frames where the lens flare too is distracting, and I understand that modern filmmakers use this to denote real lived-in environments, but it added nothing creatively for me as a viewer. One of the most distracting elements of the movie is that dialogues between characters are 90% of the time conveyed through individual shots. It does a back and forth between characters consistently, never feeling like they are in the same space together. If you told me in some scenes Laksh and Ananya were not physically present together, I would believe you. That's how distracting it is, glaringly obvious in a moment where the parents from each side confronts the couple, and the scene has this disorienting nature where the camera handheld style moves around switching between dialogues. Creatively it is done, I understand, to denote chaos, but the camera work is so dynamic that it takes away from what is being said by the actors. You know, chaos was still denoted well in a movie like Die My Love, where the constant arguments between a newly married couple played by Jennifer Lawrence and Robert Pattinson was always associated with the cries of a baby. It's realistic. Here, however, some aesthetic choices for me were just an overkill, especially in this one scene where the two characters are extremely emotional with one another. In order to denote their emotional state, you have the rain and this constantly flailing windows. It momentarily even smudges the frame of the camera. I understand what the filmmaker is going for, but it seemed way too excessive for moments where the audience just wants to focus on what is being said. Just on a side note, and I know that this is immaterial to the overall quality of the movie, but when you sell to me that love at first sight is Laksh watching Ananya Panday do hip-hop in classical attire, it's a tough sell. Ananya can groove if she wants, something we've seen in a movie like Kho Gaya Hum Kahan, and trust me, I've seen my fair share of fusion dance pieces in DU, but Ananya barely being able to execute hip-hop moves and Laksh left speechless and instantly in love had me facepalming. The scene of her performing is also edited in a way where it can just wrap up fast. Much like Janvi's attempt at Mohini Attam in Param Sundari, she could have been just a regular dancer, but this is just a side note. As a dancer myself, I just wanted to convey. Missing links and tedious second half. One of the elements of the film that slightly baffled me was the half-baked nature with which the parents of the lead pair were written. A movie like Sairat still makes the viewers understand why the couple is living in isolation, but the nature in which the parents in this tale appear and disappear is almost illogical. There isn't enough merit to understand why the parents are not active parts of their lives led by both Arav and Chandni together. So when more endearing and heartfelt moments are explored with the family in the second half, it almost gives you whiplash on how inconsistent it is from their behavior otherwise. There are random subplots in the second half that includes a student in Arav's class who constantly heckles and mocks him, and a feud that ensues between them, and the presence of Paresh Pahuja in the film that genuinely will put Jimmy me Shergill to shame, my heart goes out to him. It's these token characters and subplots that add nothing to the plot other than more detours in the lives of Arav and Chandni, and for those sequences to not hold weight or significance genuinely makes the second half of the film tedious. The more you watch the movie and the more you explore Vivek Soni's style of filmmaking, you would feel like inherently he wants to with full conviction make India's answer to La La Land. He is the man who will show the mundane activities of everyday life and present it in the most beautiful choreography and music. But these sensibilities almost seem misplaced in this film that wants to be a progressive social commentary against the angst of romance in Hindi cinema, only to cave in and become the stereotype themselves. There is this constant tug of war between the writing of wanting to communicate the morally responsible thing but just succumbing to the pressure and be like pyar se badkar aur kuch nahi. Through the initial portion of Chand Mera Dil, I respected the filmmaker for sticking to his convictions of being the antithesis of the norm of Hindi romance currently, only to fall in the trap of cliches, completely undoing what it set out to achieve and communicate. It showed such promise initially, only to cave in and become a tiresome watch in the end. It's not a train wreck by any means, but so half-baked in so many elements. And that was a video, guys. Write down in the comments below what you thought about Chand Mera Dil. Please don't forget to follow me on Instagram. The handle is right in front of you. Follow me at JammyPants4. Also, please support us by smashing the like button and subscribing to our channel for weekly content ahead. Thank you for watching.